Let's talk about the bull signals for an altcoin boron. People keep insinuating that when the price of Bitcoin reaches this number, or when the price of Bitcoin reaches that number, that'll be the signal that altcoins will actually run. And I think that's a very, very bad way of looking at it. Because I think how Bitcoin rises is more important than how much Bitcoin rises to. And here's what I'm talking about. If Bitcoin could rise to 150K, but if it's like, going up and then going down, if it's like, 3 steps forward, 2 steps backward, 3 steps forward, 2 steps backward, that's not going to benefit altcoins at all. At most, in that kind of scenario, altcoins will have somewhat marginal gains. You need Bitcoin to basically go straight up without having too many dips for any sustained amount of time and not having too many pauses to truly have a Bitcoin bull run. This is the reason that altcoin season generally does not last long, because when Bitcoin goes up like that, a lot of times sooner or later that signals a top and it's time to sell. So it's inevitable that altcoin seasons never last all that long, a month or two at the most, before we either peak or come back down. If you look at the Google Trends graph for altcoin interest, you will see pretty much the exact same thing. So if you really look at like the last two really altcoin seasons, shortened altcoin seasons we've had, essentially early 2024 and late 2024, early 2025, you'll see this particular pattern. What happens is right after the ETFs, essentially Bitcoin shot, after that slight dip after the ETFs, we shot from 40 something thousand directly to 70 something thousand. And even though it was really short, altcoins did have a decent amount of gain then. Many of them went up to 300% at that point. And the second one I'm talking about, obviously, is the latest one, mid-November into maybe January or late December of 2024, January of 2025. And what happened then? After Donald Trump got elected, essentially we went from 65,000 to 108,000 very, very quickly again. There wasn't too much pullback during that whole time. We might have had a few days where we kind of went sideways, but it was just like up, sideways, up, sideways. It was very, very fast. Within the period of a month and a half, we gained $40,000 very, very quickly. And we reached a new all-time high, obviously. And alts reflected on that. So what we really need is a new all-time high, but we actually need to get to that new all-time high very, very quickly. It can't be piecemeal, going 3 steps up and 2 steps back, because that's really not going to benefit altcoins. Like this time around, we just reached 112K, but altcoins didn't really do anything. In fact, even when we reached 112K, many of the altcoins are 30, 40, 50% or more below where Bitcoin was, below where they were when Bitcoin was 108K. And that's because basically, yes, we did go down a lot, 70K, and then we did come up from 70K. But when we came up from 70K, we didn't actually break the all-time high. We stalled for a very, very long time before bursting up to 112K. And the price that we stalled at was around 90 something thousand for a while, or lower 100,000. So going up all of a sudden 8,000 points, yes, it did have somewhat of an effect on crypto, on alts, but it didn't have the effect that we want. Just recovering back up to 100,000, that didn't affect alts much because we've been at that price before. But when we actually got to the new all-time high of 112K, we didn't really go up all that much. We went up less than 10%. Now alts did go up 15, 20%. But then they've actually retreated some since then, because Bitcoin has actually been stunted after it reached 112 for, half a month or more now. So alts, once Bitcoin stunts for a short amount of time, alts do start to retreat. And during that time, we've gone up to 109, gone down to 104, and now we're back up to 109 again. And when Bitcoin does that, alts kind of lose prominence. What I mean is they'll gain a lot when Bitcoin goes up, but Bitcoin only has to dip down about halfway for them to lose pretty much all the gains. And that's why, Bitcoin dominance has been in the 63%, 64% range instead of the 62, 63% range. Yes, it's each point of that dominance is hard to gain. A lot of it is because of the presence of stablecoins, which never basically change in terms of value, and market cap keeps going up because they keep printing more stablecoins, obviously. But the thing is, like, when Bitcoin has the ups and downs, where it's 3 steps forward, 2 steps backward, altcoins basically tend to stay flat or even retrace a little bit. You know, at 108,000, many of the altcoins were pretty close to their all-time highs, and now they're 30, 40, 50% or more down from their all-time highs, and we're going to see more of that. You know, like, some people might be excited about, oh, Bitcoin at 115K or Bitcoin at 120K. I'm not really that excited about Bitcoin 115K, 120K. I think Bitcoin would actually have to go up to about 130, 135K at least, and it has to be a very, very quick come up for any kind of alt season. Because if you think about it right now, we're about 110. 130 would be like, you know, at 17, 18%. 135 would be a little over 20% gain. And that's really not much for a Bitcoin alt season. Not much at all for a Bitcoin alt season, honestly. And even at that point, you know, some altcoins might be only 50, 60% up. And that needs to happen over the course of 3 or 4 days. Not 3 or 4 months. That's not going to do anything for alts. But 3 or 4 days. You might think, oh, 50, 60%, that's still not an alt season. You're right. That means to get a true alt season the way you guys want it and the way I want it, Bitcoin has to reach about 150K while going up very, very fast. How long would that actually take us to get to 150K? Probably like half a month, 20 days at the most. If we can actually achieve that kind of gain over half a month or 20 days, I believe we will actually have a corresponding alt season. The reason in one of my last streams I said $4,000 Ethereum could trigger an alt season is because essentially the way that Ethereum goes up, even though it has an ETF, is essentially the same way all alts have to go up. Yes, there are people buying the Ethereum ETF. Yes, it's been decently strong lately. But the thing is, like, it's still stuck at 2,800 or so, and Bitcoin's near the all-time high. And, you know, last time Bitcoin was, 108, 109,000 back in January, Ethereum was $4,000. So you can see how much it's actually lost against Bitcoin in terms of dominance during those last couple of months. And I think the only way Ethereum gets back to 4,000 is if Bitcoin really quickly shoots up to about maybe like 120, 125. And then Ethereum will have that, 30% gain, which will bring up the ERC20s, which will actually bring up the alts. Now, exchanges and dexes might be the exception to this because anytime we have massive increased volume among Ethereum, even if the price doesn't go up a lot, the dexes will actually go up. And that's why Uniswap and Hyperliquid, by the way, are actually up a lot today, because anytime there's like big price variances or there's like a hot coin, there's going to be massive demand for stuff like Uniswap, Hyperliquid, because people are going to be trading and leverage trading basically on those type of swings. And that obviously is good for these dexes, these dex exchanges that basically thrive on this stuff. So, I mean, I would actually put a bit of money in dexes, and especially like something like Hyperliquid, which I've been pretty much hype on, no pun intended, well, actually pun intended, for the last 2 or 3 months, and it's done great. The danger with Hyperliquid is that it gets hacked. And of course, being an exchange, there's always that problem. But if you believe they cannot be hacked and completely go down, I think Hyperliquid will outperform the rest of the market, assuming it doesn't get hacked. If it gets hacked, then obviously it's a different story. But let's just assume it doesn't get hacked. I think it'll be one of the best performers. So those are the coins. BNB is also kind of an exception to the rule because Binance buys back their coins and burns them, much like a stock buyback. So that'll actually keep it from falling too much, because Binance actually controls a lot of the supply. You might argue that it's centralized and that's not fair, but it's the market, so really no one cares if it's really fair or not. So the thing is, like, yeah, that's why we need sudden massive increases without too much pullback for altcoins to go up, because you need to build up that momentum and sentiment. And altcoin season is all about momentum. You don't gain momentum by gaining $5,000 in Bitcoin and then dropping $4,000. That kills all the momentum completely. You need to gain $5,000 and then $5,000 more and then $6,000 more and then $10,000 more. That builds the momentum and the confidence for people to actually invest in altcoins. If you keep on having pullbacks that are almost as big as the gains, yes, Bitcoin might overall gain $10,000 over the course of 3 months, but there'll be no momentum for alt season. And the thing is, like, even after the alt ETFs come through, I just don't think this is going to change. I think it'll always be driven by Bitcoin's momentum, and you need that momentum to keep rolling ahead without stopping. If you keep hitting speed bumps, it's not going to do alts that much good. Bitcoin can power through those speed bumps, but altcoins really cannot because they just don't have the bigger buyers. A couple of them have a few companies buying, but they're very, very small compared to the Bitcoin buys. I know Solana has one of the largest, but even that is only $1 billion in buys for Solana. And that's not going to be able to keep up with MicroStrategy, Similar Scientific, and all these other countries and companies that are actually putting their money down and buying Bitcoin. But if you can build up that momentum with Bitcoin, get Ethereum up to $4,000 on that momentum, pull the ERC20s up, and then through that, pull the rest of the market up, then you can have a very, very nice alt season. And of course, once Bitcoin, the momentum fades, you want to sell out because the altcoin season is going to just basically drop through the floor when Bitcoin momentum fades out. And like the euphoria lasts for like a month or two tops before it starts dropping down. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.